Minasan, konnichiwa. So today we're going to talk about modern Hōjutsu, and the reason for that is a few people have asked me recently, it must be on trend at the moment, they've asked me recently what do I think about modern Hōjutsu. Well, first of all, I'm flattered that anyone would value my opinion enough to ask. And my opinion on the martial art, or the so-called martial art, is yes, I do think it is a martial art. My short answer is yes. Long answer is no, it's not Hōjutsu in a traditional sense. And that's what we're going to look into today. We're going to look about what Hōjutsu is in the traditional sense and what it's been turned into in the modern sense. Now, if you just go for the word Hōjutsu, which is actually made up of two words, Ho and Jutsu, or gun, the way of, artillery, the way of, then of course it is the way of the gun, and that could be applied to any sort of like a ballistically powered barreled weapon then. So this would be Hōjutsu, and this would be Hōjutsu, and this would be Hōjutsu.
God grant me strength!
As you can see, they all use barreled weapons, and all those weapons are being used for combat or self-defense. And some schools that call themselves Hōjutsu schools, that's what they're doing. They're offering firearms training, and they're putting a Japanese slant on it, a bit of a Budo slant, or putting on the a bit of a Bushido concept to it, which is fine. And I understand that, because people have interest in things, they find interest in what they like, and if that's what their interest is, well, that's absolutely legitimate and fine. So my short answer is yes, it is a martial art. However, I would point out that having worked with the Japanese police and worked with the Japanese ground self-defense force, the Jeitai as well, none of them ever call their firearms training Hōjutsu. They don't, they call it Juno Kunen, or just firearms training, because that's what it is. So despite it being in Japan, and despite it being applied to modern day warfare and modern way of self-defense for law enforcement officers, it is not called Hōjutsu anymore. It's called Juno Kunen, and that's what this looks like to me. So, Juno Kunen involves more than just getting a nice sight picture and squeezing the trigger to make a nice tight group. It actually involves a lot of self-defense as well. So in the same way that this Hōjutsu is being taught, this modern Hōjutsu, it involves more than just getting a nice sight picture and getting a nice tight grouping on the target downrange, and hopefully never having to get a nice tight grouping on a real target, because you should never get into a fight unless you absolutely have to.
So what is the difference, therefore, between modern shooting and Hōjutsu? Hōjutsu can be more accurately defined as the Japanese art of gunnery, as opposed to the art of gunnery, which itself is a synonym, in my opinion, for Juno Kunen or Shageki Kunen. In addition, it can be defined as gunnery from a specific time period, 1543, when the matchlock guns were introduced into Japan, until the introduction of Western military strategy in the 1840s. After this, the corps of infantry and professional soldiering would become more than ideas, and by 1868, the year of the Meiji Restoration, Hōjutsu had ceased to exist as a practical strategy on the battlefield. By this time, samurai like Kosabara Akamatsu had seen Western battlefield tactics and translated manuals from French and English into Japanese, further strengthening the concept of creating standing armies that would go on to use Juno Kunen or Shageki Kunen along with modern military equipment and modern military strategies. As it stands, there are 10 schools of shooting that are Hōjutsu. That being said, all of them are more than likely a revival of the feudal way of the gun, Japan having gone through a lot of societal and military changes since the end of the samurai. These 10 schools of shooting are Inatomi, Geki, Ogino, Tatsuke, Seki, Byue, Yo, Tanagashima, Takashima, and Morishige. All of these schools are similar in that they use matchlock guns as opposed to modern firearms. Their training is based off of military tactics and research of the Japanese feudal era, and all of them involve more than just shooting. The manner and the conduct of the gunner all make part of that particular ryu. But there are also differences between the different schools. The Tanagashima ryu, for example, focuses on the accuracy of the individual shooter. The Takashima ryu is a group shooting school which involves the weight of lead or the amount of firepower that can be put down, and the Morishige ryu, which the Matsumoto Castle Gun Corps practice, also involves a lot of accuracy, but as well as that, the beauty of the demonstration. So in conclusion, is modern Hōjutsu a thing? In short, yes. It appears to be not too dissimilar from modern firearms training. It also appears to apply Japanese feudal values as well, but it is not Hōjutsu, the way of Japanese shooting. This true Hōjutsu is a well-researched and well-established martial art based on gunnery from the samurai era. Don't forget to click like and share, and you can find out more at gunsamurai.com.